Today with Dr. Jordin Wiggins. We're going to be talking about protecting your energy when co-parenting with an abusive ex. I think here she is. I think pretty much everyone in our community is ex. And so we actually just had a meeting with one of our clients yesterday that I
Hi.
thought this is going to be the perfect story for today because it's making our client crazy. And I thought I can't wait to ask for your advice. So thanks so much for Jordan, and glad to finally see you.
Thank you. I don't know what was going on, but but
Yeah. But
after co-parenting with toxic exes, the tech issues are nothing. So,
I know, right? And we did it. This is the part that matters, is like we're on camera together and it's working, and hopefully everyone can hear us and we can hear each other. So I had said we're going to talk about protecting your energy when co-parenting with an abusive or very difficult ex. And I mean, is that your community as well? Is that the people that you deal with who are
so
always or often dealing with difficult exes?
how I came to this world was a little different. And actually, I had reached out to you guys early in my separation days. I think if we go back in our DMs, I'm like, they get it before I even knew what was happening in my life. But long story short, I've been a naturopathic doctor for almost 13 years now. I started noticing my patients were having issues with libido, which to me is a sign that there's other things wrong with their health. And
Mm-hmm.
then a big part of that population that was having libido issues, they were also having coercive issues, power dynamic issues, abuse issues. Um, and so my work kind of came there naturally. Plus, I was in an abusive relationship and didn't know it myself at the time, which is very common also for a lot of my clients. They have multiple degrees, they're members, they run multiple seven-figure companies, and they have no idea what they're actually dealing with. And a lot of time it's because they have super traits.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra Brown's research, I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
talked about that in your world, but I find that to be very much my stereotypical client. Very hardworking, very empathetic, loyal, tolerant, forgiving. And that's just sort of this perfect storm recipe for to either stay in a toxic relationship for way too long or be prone to starting them to
Yeah.
begin with. And then we know that once even the relationship ends, the abuse does not. And then, that's kind of what we're talking about today. So, yeah, I came at this from a health, hormone, libido angle. And then now a lot of what I do today is help people recover from abusive relationships. And oddly, using pleasure and how we structure our days and what our focus is, that that work that I was doing with mismatched libidos translates into co-parenting quite well, or healing. And
Mm.
because I find a lot of times, at the beginning, we're in this hyper vigilant chronic stress. It's impacting everything, right? Sleep, our thought clarity, um, health, mood, our weight, like literally everything. And then I find that there's a turning point for most of the people that I work with. It's just it is either a health issue,
Mm-hmm.
like some type of health crash, which hopefully we can intervene before that. Um, or there's just a time that's like, I can't live like this anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
want to do something different. And that healing journey can be using centering yourself, centering pleasure, and finding healing that way had worked for me personally and my clients.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much of what you said that I was like, I don't want to interrupt her, but yes. So when you
Interrupt
talked
me or
about
I'll just talk all day.
same. So our clients also tend to be very well educated, highly successful professionals, and we work with men and women all over the world. And we always call them our sweetie pies because, like you said, they're super successful, but they are also the kindest, most creative, responsible, empathic, like wonderful human beings. And we love working with them, but it also made them the target of a parasite because they're so amazing. And the irony is that you're so amazing and you're beating yourself up for almost being a fool for not seeing it, but you don't realize that that's why you were targeted, is because you're so amazing. And 1 in 2 people in abusive relationships don't realize it. Like, we have many lawyers as clients. We have more mental health professionals than any other group of people. And
Yeah,
they're the ones who are
doctors,
just like, yep,
lawyers,
doctors, nurses,
therapists.
teachers, yep. Yeah. And they're just like, I can't believe it. And the other, I always say, an added level of shame is that these are the people who are role models in the community. And so when they dare mention it to others who love them, they'll say, you of all people, I never thought you would fall for something like that,
It's
right?
re-traumatizing to be shamed in that way. I know. But
Yeah.
and it's just this whole misunderstanding of the abuse cycle. And
Mhm.
we're educated.
I know.
We're taught to screen for abuse, but we're taught to screen for the violent incident
Or
model.
for it's other people. But when you're living in it over time, we know about coercive control. It's like you don't see how the power dynamic has shifted or that it's always been because it's so familiar.
And that's why I love the boiled frog analogy, because I felt like it was so accurate,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're
Why don't you
eroding
say what that
slowly
is
over
just
time.
in case
Yeah,
people don't
just
know
in
the
case.
frog in
No.
the pot.
Um, so abuse is like putting a frog. If you put a frog in boiled water, it will jump, boiling water, it will jump out right away. But if you put a frog in room temperature water and slowly turn the temperature up over time, it stays until it dies. And that is more accurate in my experience, or now doing all the work that I've done on coercive control. Like, that's what abuse is like. If they are controlling, extremely controlling on the first date, if they are violent on the first date, you're probably going to run. But it's the slow erosion, or the taking of power and control over time. And that's not even, because we're taught, you know, screen for bruises, screen for SA, like the violent incident model is what you're taught
Right.
in
We're
medical
not
school,
taught.
and how to screen. We have no idea about coercive control.
Right. So, for example, something like when you're going on a first date with someone and they say, where do you want to eat? And you're like, I don't know, it's up to you because you're flexible. You already start setting up a dynamic. It seems like nothing. By being flexible and thoughtful and open minded, you are already starting off where that other person is making decisions, instead of you saying, this is actually, let me think about, like, this is where I want to
Yeah,
eat. Like,
and
those are little tiny things.
what do I want and
Right.
desire? And that was my work with women when it came to sex, because we're taught that, that's for men. It's for men's pleasure. We're sort of in service of. So, but I
Mm.
didn't realize what a mirror that was to relationships in general, where we're taught to be flexible, accommodating, of service, hardworking, tolerant, all the super traits. And
Yeah.
then, you know, and I saw in the comments that then you're asked after, well, what red flags did you miss? Which is another re-traumatizing,
Right.
victim blaming thing to say.
Yeah. Nobody notices red flags before. It's only in hindsight that we're like, oh yeah, all that porn spilling out of the closet probably should have signaled that something wasn't quite right with that person.
Exactly. But that is something I never thought that I would be a victim of abuse ever. I was
Nobody does.
educated. I made my own money. I was like this
Yeah.
strong,
Mhm.
powerful, you know, so I thought,
Right,
but
right.
I didn't even see it coming until I was so eroded that I didn't know what food I liked, didn't know what clothes to wear. Like my entire sense of self was gone. And that happened slowly over time. And I remember sitting on the edge of the bed thinking, how did I get here? Like I used to solve complex medical problems and I can't even get dressed.
Yep. Yep. You're reminding me of someone that we worked with years ago, who was a very high powered corporate attorney, and had gotten in a relationship where she had a baby and a toddler. Her ex would let her go out to work only, where she was like this type A, like, you know, boss girl. And then when she'd come home, he'd lock her in the basement. He'd boarded up the windows and keep her and the babies in the basement and scream the most awful things. So she was basically physically a prisoner, and nobody had any idea. And this went on for years.
Yeah, no, I have uh, bad goosebumps hearing that story, but it's so common. And I think with all that shame, and because especially in that case, in my case, you are high functioning, no one
Mm-hmm.
knows. You
And
don't
who are you going to
even,
talk to about it?
yeah, and then we don't believe women. That's a
Mm.
whole other,
Yeah.
we could do a
Yeah.
live just
I know.
on
I
that
know.
topic, right?
Yeah.
Um but yeah, that hypervigilance, that trauma response, that want to serve and please and tolerate, all of those super traits, or all of those things that make you so exceptional in career, they really do make you exceptional at relationships. But when we have a partner that is personality disordered, addicted, you know, seeking to control you, um, which, and the fascinating part, and I'm working a lot, well, a lot on the intimacy aspect with women, but now a lot on women that want to rebuild after this. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I have super traits. I know this. Like, and then they get into new relationships and they repeat the same pattern. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
almost even more shame because it's like, I'm here again. Right.
Yeah.
So how do we heal it? How do we heal it so we can communicate with the ex? How do we heal so we don't repeat those same patterns? And it's there's multiple like multiple layers of that journey that we have to go on.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting when you said with your work regarding pleasure and intimacy, there's parallels between co-parenting. Talk a lot about that. That's
I know.
fascinating.
So when when I compare intimacy and abuse, or intimacy and career, people at first it's kind of like what, but it's, to me, that it's a microcosm, like it's a very intimate and vulnerable part of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
um so a lot of women, and I'm talking because I've done the Pleasure Collective since 2018, I think. And 1 in 2 women suffers from sexual dysfunction globally. Like 50% is the
Wow.
statistic. And I think that's underreported.
And can you define what is dysfunction? Like, what does that
I
cover?
can, and I'm going to say what it is also missing, what the definition is missing. So, sexual dysfunction is issues with desire. So, like just wanting to be intimate,
Mm-hmm.
issues with the like getting aroused and staying aroused, painful intimacy. I'm trying to kind of watch my words for the
I know.
censoring on here. Painful intimacy and difficulty with orgasm. I don't know how to
Mhm.
work around that one
Yeah, but
and be direct. So
that's
we're
okay.
and I wrote The Pink Canary about that, about sexual dysfunction in women and the pleasure problem that we have, where we are all focused on others, our needs come last,
Mhm.
just in that whole thing. But what I did not understand when I wrote The Pink Canary and when I was educated in sexual dysfunction from a medical perspective. Oh, and one more thing on that. To me, sex is, and like arousal, desire, that aliveness, that part of you, that is a sign of health. So, you know how we talk about like sleep,
Mhm.
nutrition, exercise, like we have our pillars of health. Sexual function, I think, is a should be one of those pillars, and it's often forgotten or pushed to the side.
Absolutely. I
And we
don't,
know,
I've never heard anybody talk about that as part of health.
yeah, but it is because when we are stressed out, in fight or flight, when we are hyper vigilant, when we are reacting to the abuse, to the triggers, like our bodies feel like they're surviving. They're prioritizing survival. They're not prioritizing reproduction. So we don't feel our best. We don't have that energy, right? When we're dealing with these relationships or post separation abuse, and it's just a perfect, to me, barometer of if we don't have desire, arousal, all that kind of thing. And there are some people that extreme stress, they do have increased desire because
Mm. Like
it's a
relief.
stress relief
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah. um but for the most part, like if we don't have arousal, desire, easily orgasm, feeling good, it's a sign that we have dysfunction in other areas. The pleasure centers in our brain are turned off, and they've actually studied that with MRIs. So when you're in an abusive relationship, recovering from an abusive relationship, if you have super traits, then that's all affected. So that was a warning sign to me, but I didn't see at the time what was missing from sexual dysfunction, or the definition, what to look for when we were healing it is coercive control. Is this person being sexually coerced? Because I would have thousands of women come to me, do my programs, and certain things would improve. They would learn what they desired, like
Mhm.
in and out of the bedroom. Because when I look at pleasure, I look at it holistically, and I look at it as a path back to yourself. But
Yep.
I was teaching it as the path back to yourself sexually. Little did I know it was going to help save me
Mhm.
during and after my abusive relationship, because um, it was the path back to me. What are my desires? What makes me happy? And you're starting small when it's really, really bad. Like I was I call it like pleasure research. I was pleasure researching what music I even
Mhm.
liked. That's how lost and scrambled my brain was at the time. So I was just taking my work, but applying it for a different set of healing. And there's thousands of women that think they have a mismatched desire issue, or like I don't know why I don't want sex. Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. But then we dig in a little deeper, and sex is just another way to gain power and control in abusive relationships. So really the problem isn't her. It's that her body is responding to being in an abusive environment.
As you're saying this, I'm thinking of so many parallels between the people that we work with, because we deal a lot with legal abuse and horrible co-parenting situations, and how we often talk about fun. So putting aside sexual pleasure, but we talk about like What things do you do for fun even? Forget dating. And many of our clients are like, I don't
Blank
have fun.
stare. They
Yeah,
can't
I
answer.
don't even know. I don't remember fun, but I don't have time for fun because I have to work on my case right now. And how important it is to balance out that cortisol. And there's a book that I read years ago that we always recommend to clients called The Power of Fun by Catherine Price. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's a
No.
great book, but it has all these little fun factors and little questionnaires and things you can take to sort of remind yourself of what you actually like, because in these coercively controlling relationships, you lose your center. You forget who you are, and then you're terrified that you're nothing because that's how you feel right now, and you can never get yourself back, and no one's going to be interested in you because you're no fun.
And that's what you were told,
Yeah,
right?
right, right.
Could never do
I'm the
anything right.
best
You
you can
were
do.
nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing was good enough. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
so
there's
many parallels.
well, and we can look at like communication with a co-parent post separation and do the like a parallel to intimacy. So for example, and I look at like energy leaks or pleasure leaks, but like so emotional baiting,
Hmm.
um, where we're using the abuse tactics, right? Like the blame, the denial, the the darvo, the manipulation after. So give you an example where you're I'm trying to think of a specific one.
I've got a
Go
client.
go ahead, tell
This
me.
is actually not a woman. This is a male client. Um, we have somebody who has written into their orders that their ex is not supposed to come to their house. They're not supposed to drop stuff off. It's not good for the kids to be around that conflict. So that's already a legal thing. This person's ex and their new partner constantly are baiting and pushing and putting the kids in the middle, like, oh, I'm just gonna drop off the kids' stuff. And the kid's like, well, what's the problem? And they say hi to you. Why can't you say it back? And our client is going insane because they're being baited. They feel like there's a lack of respect for those boundaries. Everything is being pushed, and they're experiencing a tremendous sense of injustice because it's like, why do I have to say hello to this person? Why do I have to pretend that things are fine? They're pretending with
Yeah,
me, and the kids are thinking that I'm the problem and I'm
right.
just
While
losing
they're
my
violating
mind.
an order.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so then you look like the problem.
Right. And the legal system isn't helping because there's no physical danger, even though it says on paper, it doesn't rise to the level of really being enforced.
I need yeah, I need a minute to just feel my rage for the
Sorry.
injustice here before I respond
And I
accordingly.
know you work with women. Like I said, we work with
Yeah.
men and women. And part of what I love is that a lot of them experience the same dynamic, the power issues and the pushing.
Yeah, so that baiting that can happen with sex too. So I'll talk about that in a second. But the baiting is done to create a nervous system response and create destabilization,
And it
right?
is.
And also to exert dominance and control. And then, yeah, by reacting or giving the reaction that that person violating the court order wants, then you fall into the trap that they're
Mhm.
setting for you, where you look like the problem.
Exactly.
And learn for me and my clients, learning to work with that nervous system response, like feel the, and actually it was almost a little bit of what I just did there, where I I knew that that story was inciting a response for me, and that it was anger for the
Hmm.
client and the injustice of the system and everything. But when we are so focused externally on others, when we have our super traits, when we are in that coercive power dynamic, we are not good at going inward. in figuring out how we feel, because we're so focused on everyone else. And that's how we're trained as women. We're trained in abuse dynamics, right? To walk on eggshells and keep the abuser happy so that we can try to stay safe. So we're trying to micromanage everything. But the focus is external. And really, what we need to do is learn to feel our feelings and build our tolerance for like our own feelings and our own tolerance for letting other people be uncomfortable or disappointed with us, because that's what I find is a big issue. And sometimes it's a safety issue, which is different but worth mentioning. So sometimes being able to feel your own feelings, validate them in the moment, right? Because we're validating our feelings for ourselves. We don't need that validation, especially from a toxic partner. But that dynamic, that trauma bond is so well ingrained that if we can feel our own feelings, validate them in the moment, and we have tools and techniques for how to like regulate our own nervous system so we can act from a regulated place, even when people are trying to bait us, even it's not going to work every time because we're human, right? We're not
Yeah.
going for perfection here.
Mm-hmm.
But um having those tools, so then you can choose, right? Because when you're in a trauma bond, the same pattern is going to keep repeating unless you learn new skills to do things
Mm-hmm.
differently, whether it is a quick grounding exercise in the moment. Like, what are three things I can see and two things I can feel, or something? Like, you're just orienting yourself um, so that we can think clearly. I love this. I can't remember the researcher. This is not my work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's for kids, but I always talk about it for adults because it makes so much sense. So they talk about the stress response. Like, there's a watchdog when you're in fight or flight, like something that wants to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a possum, right? When you go into hypoarousal shutdown, like, don't hurt me. I don't want to engage. I want to leave. And then there's your wise owl, which is where the cortex of your brain, your frontal lobe, your thinking, right? You're using your whole brain as opposed to survival when you're being baited.
Mm-hmm.
So we need tools to get us back to that wise owl in the moment. And then we won't be falling into those traps. Like, over explaining is a massive one for my clients. I don't know if you run into that.
All
Do
the
you?
time. Yeah, all the time. That's a lot of times we this is one of our prompts, our little props is a muzzle. We're like, you got to stop.
Mm. I've needed that at times, and
Yeah.
so do my clients.
Yeah.
But yeah, in trying to use logic, trying to, connect with them or get them to understand, for somebody that is like, they are intent on trying to misunderstand you, right? So over explaining is just, it's going to get us, we're going to step in it every single time.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I see in this situation and in other parallel situations is this deep sense of injustice. Like, this is not supposed to be happening. Why is it being allowed to continue and nobody is helping me? The system's not helping. The piece of paper isn't doing anything. And it shouldn't be like this. What can I do to change things? But I can't keep living like this. But all those external factors you mentioned, they're not helping him.
And that is unjust.
Yeah.
So how does that client validate it? Well, we have to say, like, we have to, what's the feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Is it anger,
Yes.
rage?
Yep.
Like, what are those feelings?
Rage, injustice, despair.
And then where are those feelings located in the body?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they need to complete? So, what does his anger need?
Hmm.
And I I have done lots of screaming, like, right? All these, but we never go through the steps of completing the emotional cycle. We try
Hmm.
to suppress it.
That's really interesting.
So we have to be able to name our feelings. And especially women with super traits, do you know how much time I spend on a feelings wheel with them?
Oh,
And me too. I had a therapist once ask me, like, well, how do you feel? Overwhelmed. That was my only
that's
note.
the most common word that we get, overwhelmed.
And
Number
and
one.
and and yes, they are. So, but overwhelmed
Hmm.
and just being able to sit with the feelings wheel and name, this is what I'm feeling right now. And knowing if I'm feeling grief, if I'm feeling rage, if I'm feeling despair, what do those feelings need to feel better? And then
Hmm.
we're able to get our power back that way because we're soothing ourselves.
Yeah, and instead of focusing on the external, like the court should do something, my ex should stop behaving like this, the police should make it stop, because we can't control any of that. But more of like, what can you do for yourself?
Right, yes, and
Just for the
but
emotion.
while also the system, everything you just said was valid and true. And look at what's going on with the files. I don't know what I can say without this getting banned, but um, what goes on in family court and when you're trying to protect children that are victims, it's that's just like a micro example of like what's going on macro on high level with government. So we do not protect children. We don't protect women. The court doesn't do it. The police don't do it. And that is a massive injustice. And we should have rage, grief, despair, all the feelings about it. And if you don't, right, I'm telling everyone, watch very carefully to the people around you and watch their reaction to these things. Watch what they're saying because you will be able to tell very quickly who's who's a coercive controller, who is a child essayer. Like this is a black and white situation. We are either supporting the perpetrators or supporting the victims. There is no, you know,
Hmm.
there's no gray here. So
Yeah.
yeah, but being able to validate your own feelings and process them, that gives you your power back. That lets you break trauma bonds. That lets you, you know, if you can stay stuck in the feelings part of the injustice for months, for years, but it's not going to help you take any meaningful action, whatever that is. If it's for your own case or for advocacy work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, learning to validate our own feelings and process our own emotion is so powerful. And when you're a victim of abuse, we have this internalized self doubt because our
Hmm.
sense of self has been systematically eroded. So just by validating, I'm feeling this and that is valid
Like I have a
w-
right to feel this.
without anyone's permission is so powerful over time. And you got to fake it till you make it a little bit with that one. But it's like everyone has a right to their feelings. And then this beautiful thing happens because when we feel like we have to caretake for everyone else's emotions, but we don't feel like we have the right to our own, that sets us up for these toxic dynamics to continue and continue. But when you can have your own emotional experience, validate your own emotional experience, it, process it, and not project it on anyone else, not feel like it's anyone else's responsibility to fix it, then all of a sudden you start going, oh, like I don't have to fix this for everyone in my life anymore either. Like that's theirs to carry. That's
Right.
not mine to fix. And it it really changes dynamics moving forward.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it's almost making me think about letting go of feeling like you can control the situation because you can't.
Right. We can't control the toxic act just like we can't control government
Right.
or the court system. Or yeah, I remember having this like a conversation with a DV detective, and who was excellent and was like, we believe you, we see this criminal history here, like we totally believe you. And do you have a video? Or do you,
Mhm.
right? and and just like that level of, okay, no one's coming to save me here, and
Right.
this system is so backwards, especially in North America. Like in, is it the UK that they actually jailed somebody for coercive control recently? Right. So
Yeah.
certain places, Australia's laws are
Yeah,
better.
Australia's really.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do think it's changing. We have some bills that are on there, like second and third reading. Are you Canadian? I forgot.
No,
American?
I'm not Canadian. I'm a New Yorker. I live in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's stuff like West Virginia, Idaho, something in Illinois. Like right now, I'm posting content about like new bills, and I feel like it's a wave that's
Yeah.
slowly taking over America.
hmm So it's amazing. It's much, much needed. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, any other things? I feel like we could talk about all kinds of things. I know we've been talking for a while. Is there any other things that people should think about while co-parenting with a really difficult ex? So I think acknowledging your feelings, it sounds so simple, like don't
It
suppress your feelings, but
no,
it's
it
it's
sounds
really
so simple
hard.
that it's almost like,
I know, but it's almost like
like
sitting
people want to
still.
dismiss me, especially the
Right.
people with, my clients with the multiple degrees and board
Yeah.
seats, and like they've
Right.
built and sold multiple businesses, and they're like, feelings,
Yeah.
what? But
Yeah. Or just
try
sit
and
still,
do
but I
it.
can't do it.
Yeah, try and do it.
Yeah.
So we have to focus on what we have control over in the
Mhm.
situation. And if we can no longer be manipulated by having our, like by baiting, by that self doubt, by having our super traits weaponized against us, that sets you up for having so many more options in a co parenting dynamic, because it's not as simple to me as, oh, here's a communication strategy, right? Like, oh, we need to gray rock or something, which
Or like
it,
use AI. No,
yeah,
that's a tool. That's not going to deal with the issue of how do I stand up to a bully and deal with my PTSD every time I get a ding from OFW.
exactly. And those tactics, like change the name in the phone. And then you get your lawyer being like, we're going to need to change these
Yeah, we
screenshots
can't do
before
that.
the judge sees them.
Yeah. I know. I did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, the name's been changed multiple times
Mhm.
in my case. But yeah, focusing on what you have control of, um, and learning to be able to regulate your own physiologic response is the most powerful thing that you can do with healing. And if we can pair that with focusing on pleasure, focusing on fun, and I'm talking about literally, and I know what the level of chaos can be when, especially the post separation abuse, when it's coming at you like legal, financial, all the ways, and it feels like the world is caving in. Simple things like when you were taking a shower, taking time to actually smell your shampoo,
Mhm.
enjoy washing your hair, or like just like feeling
Like
anything
the
like that that's going to
sensory, like the hot
ground you.
water, just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So your senses, sight, touch, taste, having a cup of coffee in the morning and like sitting and enjoying it, because we can turn those pleasure centers back on. We can get you out of that stress response, but it's going to require like little micro shifts over time. And at the beginning, I started with skincare routine
Mm.
and actually taking my supplements. And so that was like morning and night. I had 5 minutes each that I, no matter what happened that day, I was going to take that time, enjoy, focus, and I was going to take my supplements. It
Hmm.
didn't matter what email I got, what crazy thing happened that day. That's, and then you do that. And then that
Hmm.
becomes routine and that becomes habit. And then we stack onto it and stack onto it. Right. And it doesn't have to cost any more money or be overly involved, because we see a lot of stuff online, right? That self care is these elaborate spa days that cost hundreds of dollars and take time and um, effort that we don't have, or money we don't have when we're in the depths of post separation abuse. But um,
You just
yeah,
reminded when you said skincare routine, one of my really close friends, we get together pretty much every Sunday and like go down to the beach or take a walk or something. And when she's sitting still, she always has lotion and she just sits there and like goes like this and puts it, she's got the most amazing hands also because she's always putting, but she says she feels like it soothes her, just that movement. Maybe it's because it's also bilateral of like back and forth, like one hand over the other of
for
rubbing
sure.
lotion in and
Yeah,
moisturizing, almost like nourishing her body with it, like symbolically.
the lotion challenge is a pleasure practice that I recommend. And that
Oh,
is
really?
after your shower, take 5 minutes and again, it sounds simple, but somebody who is hypervigilant, if you set a timer for 5 minutes and you try to take 5 minutes to lotion yourself, after about two, you're going to be, you know,
So interesting.
yeah,
I'm gonna mention this, the lotion challenge.
yeah,
That's a good
it's
one.
just one example of something that you could do or get in the habit of doing. And what we're training ourselves to do is we're in this hypervigilant state, and I'm going to bring myself
Hmm.
into regulated into that
By
wise
yourself.
owl.
Yeah.
Right. By yourself, not when you're being triggered. But
Yeah.
then when your ex with the order shows up at the door and tries to bait you, then, right, what are we doing? We're heightened, and then we can
Yeah.
bring it back down because we've trained for it. And if
Yeah.
we're training with pleasure, then at least it's fun and it's helping your health and it's going to eventually help you sleep better and have better immune function and heal. So, um, yeah,
That's
that's my
great.
approach.
I have all kinds of notes that I've written. Well, thank you so much, Jordin, for talking today and giving like all these cool tips. And I cannot wait for this particular client to watch this video. Um, I think it'll be helpful. It's not going to fix everything, I'm sure, but it's definitely going to be a place to start that we're going to keep reminding him, like,
Yeah,
try it,
baby
just keep
steps.
trying. Yeah, yeah. So how can people find you?
On Instagram at Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and my podcast, the Pleasure Principles podcast, is a great place to start. And you know what? I have a 50 pleasure practices worksheet I can give you the link.
Ooh,
So it's like include, the lotion challenge and 50 other ideas for when you're in this position and how do I start baby stepping it. I can give you that link as well.
yeah, super helpful. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again. I'm so glad we finally made it happen.
Me too. Thank you.
All right, let's definitely not make this the last conversation.
Definitely not. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, my pleasure. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.